All right, today we're diving into a story that feels like it's ripped straight from a modern political thriller, but it's actually an ancient text. We're talking high-stakes strategy, hidden identities, a terrifying conspiracy, and the incredible courage of one woman who literally had the fate of her entire people on her shoulders. Who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? I mean, just let that sink in. This one question is the absolute core of our story today. It's a question thrown at a young queen, and her answer, well, it's a life or death decision that's going to decide everything for an entire nation. The stakes? Yeah, they couldn't be any higher. Okay, so where does all this drama unfold? Let's set the scene. We're in the massive Persian Empire, right inside the glittering but super volatile court of King Ahasuerus. And this isn't just some small-time king. We're talking about a guy who ruled over 127 provinces, all the way from India to Ethiopia. He was the most powerful man in the world. So if you want a picture of just how powerful and over-the-top this king was, get this number, 187 days. He threw a party, a single party, for his nobles that lasted 180 days. That is 6 solid months of feasting. And as if that wasn't enough, right after he throws another 7-day rager for everyone in the capital city. We're talking couches made of gold and silver and an endless supply of the best royal wine. But, it's funny how things turn. This huge display of power, this massive party, it all comes to a screeching halt over one simple command. On the last day of the feast, the king's had a bit too much wine, and he decides he wants to show off his beautiful queen, Vashti. So he summons her. And she says no. Just no. Now, you gotta understand, in an absolute monarchy like this one, that's not just a spat between a husband and wife. Oh, no. That is a public, political act of defiance. It challenges the king's power in front of everyone. Well, the king is predictably furious. And his advisors? They're in full-on panic mode. Their argument is basically, whoa. If the queen gets away with defying the king, what's to stop every other woman in the empire from doing the same to her husband? So to stop this rebellion, they talk him into making a royal decree, one that can't be changed. Vashti is out, banished. Her crown will go to someone else. And boom, just like that, we have a job opening for Queen of Persia. So what's the solution to this royal vacancy? The world's most elaborate beauty pageant, of course. The king's men are sent to all 127 provinces to round up the most beautiful young women they can find. These women are then brought to the palace for, get this, a full year of spa treatments. We're talking 12 months of beauty prep, oils, perfumes, the works. And caught up in this whole process is a young Jewish orphan named Hadassah, who you'll come to know as Esther. And believe it or not, against all the odds, this young woman, an orphan, part of a minority group, she's the one who completely wins the king over. He falls for her hard, more than any of the others, and he places the royal crown on her head. Just like that, Esther is the new queen of Persia. But here's the catch. She's starting her reign with a huge secret. Her cousin, Mordecai, who raised her, has given her a very serious warning. Whatever you do not tell anyone that you're Jewish. All right, let's move to the next chapter here, because as you can imagine, the royal palace might look like a place of incredible opportunity from the outside, but on the inside, it's basically a snake pit, a place where ambition and hate can bubble up into some really deadly plots. So King Ahasuerus promotes this guy Haman to be his new prime minister. He's now the second most powerful man in the entire empire. And the king orders that absolutely everyone has to bow down to Haman whenever he passes. But our friend Mordecai, Esther's cousin, who works at the king's gate, he refuses. As a Jew, he believes in bowing only to God. And this simple act of defiance, it sends Haman into an absolute, uncontrollable rage. But for Haman, just getting rid of Mordecai isn't enough. No, his hatred is so big, he decides he wants to wipe out Mordecai's entire people. So he goes to the king with this masterclass of manipulation. He doesn't even say the word Jew. He just talks about this certain people scattered through the empire, who have different laws and are a supposed threat. He even offers a massive bribe to the treasury to get it done. And the king? He just agrees, ticks off his signet ring, hands it to Haman, and basically signs a death warrant for an entire population without a second thought. And what comes next is just chillin'. It's an official, state-sanctioned timeline for genocide. Haman casts lots, which in Persian are called pur, to pick the exact day. Then the decree is written up and sent out by messengers to all 127 provinces. The order? to kill every single Jewish man, woman, and child on one specific day about 11 months in the future. And because it's sealed with the king's ring, the law cannot be changed. It's irreversible. The clock is now officially ticking. You can imagine the horror when Mordecai finds out. He tears his clothes, puts on sackcloth and ashes, the ultimate sign of mourning. He manages to get a copy of this death sentence to Queen Esther, along with a desperate plea. He tells her, "You are the only one who can do anything about this. You have to go to the king. You have to beg him to save our people." And this right here is the absolute turning point of the entire story. The gambit. Everything now rests on the shoulders of this one young queen. A queen who, up until now, has pretty much just done what she was told. But now she has to make a choice, all on her own. So Esther sends a message back to Mordecai, and she lays out just how impossible his request is. She tells him, look, there's a law. Nobody, not even the queen, can just walk in and see the king without being invited. The punishment is death. The only way to survive is if the king holds out his golden scepter. And, to make matters worse, she adds, he hasn't even asked to see me in a month. This is where we see Esther completely transform. Mordecai sends back that iconic challenge, who knows, maybe you became queen for this very moment. And it hits home. She accepts her fate. She tells him to have all the Jews in the city fast and pray for her for 3 days and 3 nights. And then she makes her decision. I will go to the king, she says, even though it's against the law. And if I perish, I perish. Wow, just incredible resolve. But Esther is smart. She doesn't just charge in. She plays the long game, a brilliant strategic move. She goes before the king. He holds out his scepter. And when he asks what she wants, her only request is, can you and Haman come to a banquet I'm preparing? Haman is walking on air. The queen invited him. But on his way home, he sees Mordecai still not bowing, and it just ruins his mood completely. That night, his wife gives him an idea. Build a giant gallows, like 75 feet tall, and first thing in the morning, ask the king for permission to hang Mordecai on it. And this is where the story takes an unbelievable turn. It all hinges on what seems like pure chance, or maybe you'd call it fate. That exact same night, the king can't sleep. He has insomnia. So to bore himself to sleep, he asks for the royal chronicles, the official records, to be read to him. And of all the stories in all the books, the servant just happens to read the part about how Mordecai, yes, that Mordecai, had saved the king's life by exposing an assassination plot. I mean, you can't make this timing up. Just as the king is asking, so, what did we ever do to reward Mordecai for this? Who walks into the court? Haman. He's there to ask to hang Mordecai. But before he can speak, the king asks him a question. Haman, what should I do for the man I really want to honor? And Haman's ego is so huge, he just assumes the king is talking about him. So he lays out this incredibly lavish, over-the-top public ceremony. And then the king drops the bomb. Great idea, he says. Now hurry up and do all of that for Mordecai the Jew. Can you imagine? In this moment of peak irony and just crushing humiliation, Haman has to take his mortal enemy, dress him in the king's own robes, put him on the king's horse, and then walk him through the city street shouting, this is what is done for the man the king delights to honor. Haman's downfall is officially underway. So, a completely humiliated Haman stumbles home, only to be immediately dragged off to Esther's second banquet. The stage is now perfectly set for the final dramatic showdown. So they're at the banquet, and the king asks Esther again, all right, what do you really want? Anything. And this is it. This is the moment she reveals everything. She says, if I've found favor with you, O king, spare my life and the life of my people, because we have been sold to be destroyed. The king is shocked. Who would dare do such a thing, he demands. And Esther looks right at the man sitting next to him and says, the adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman. You can just imagine the chaos. The king flies into a rage and storms out of the room. Haman, terrified, literally falls onto Esther's couch, begging for his life. Just then, the king walks back in, sees Haman on the queen's couch, and completely misreads the situation. And right at that perfect moment, one of the servants says, by the way, sir, the 75-foot gallows that Haman built for Mordecai is standing right outside his house, and the king's order is immediate. Hang him on it. So the villain is gone, but there's still a huge problem. That genocidal decree is still the law of the land, and it can't be revoked. So the king gives Esther and Mordecai his ring and tells them to write a new law. This counter-decree gives the Jewish people the right to defend themselves. So on that fateful day that was supposed to be their annihilation, they fight for their lives. And they win. This incredible reversal, from a day of destruction to a day of victory, is celebrated to this day with the festival of Purim. And that leaves us with the big question, doesn't it? When you look at this whole amazing story, what you see. Is it simply the story of one woman's incredible courage? Is it all just a series of lucky breaks? I mean, a king with insomnia, really? Or is there something else at play? An unseen hand, guiding things, putting the right person in exactly the right place at exactly the right time?